Hi there, my name is Kris. I'm a GP here in Australia, and today I am in the mood to overshare. This last year, if not these last 2 years, has not been easy for anyone. Obviously, there's been the pandemic, there's been the climate crisis, there's been the financial crisis. Basically, we're all in crisis. Personally, I've been struggling with something outside of the shared trauma that we've all been having. I've forgotten how to sleep. So that is to say, I've been struggling with insomnia. And today I'm going to kind of walk you through my journey, what I've been doing, but also trying to educate a little bit about insomnia and why I did the things I did, what worked, what didn't, what might work for you. So if you're ready for that video, strap on in because here it comes. So insomnia is defined as having a persistent difficulty going to or staying asleep. So at some point in their lives, most adults will have had an issue with insomnia for a couple of nights. You know, when you've got a big project due and you lie awake at night and you can't stop thinking about it and you can't fall asleep. That's a type of insomnia. If you've ever, again, it's usually stress related, which we will touch on. But if you've ever sort of been asleep and you wake up at 2 a.m. for no reason and then you can't fall back asleep, that's also a type of insomnia. I've definitely had the can't stop my mind from chattering, worried about something insomnia several times in my adult life. But I can say with certainty that nothing is the same or comes anywhere close to the experience that I've had in 2021. So my issues started around late March, early April, and the only reason I know this is because I journaled about it. So I had written down that I was having trouble getting to sleep for a couple of nights at this point, in that I would be really tired or fall asleep on the couch. Then when I put my head down in my bed, ready to sleep, I would be wide awake. This is a phenomenon known in the medical community as being wired and tired. So this is due to something often known as mental chatter, and it's the reason that I journal. It's something I'm very familiar with, obviously. But it's the, I guess, continuation of thoughts that are buzzing through your mind and you kind of want to action them. But of course it's 10:30 at night, it's midnight, whatever it is, you probably can't do anything about it anyway. So instead of wasting energy worrying about it, thinking about it, writing down what you're worried about, either in dot points or in prose, and then sometimes putting next step will be this, can be really, really helpful for your mental health. I've been journaling for, well, decades now, for years and years and years, and it's been really helpful to organize my thoughts and know that I'm allowed to forget something because I can always go back and read it and it'll be there. So that's how it's helped me. But obviously I was journaling about not being able to sleep, so the journaling wasn't going to be enough. So what does it actually mean to fall asleep? So to fall asleep, our sleep drive needs to be more than our arousal. And of course, arousal meaning how awake we are, how alert we are. So sleep drive is driven by several things, both physical, biochemical, and psychological. The things that go into sleep drive include your circadian rhythm, melatonin levels, and adenosine levels. Circadian rhythm is the rhythm that we get into where the sun is up, we're up, and when the sun is down, we're down. Basically, it's what makes us not nocturnal like an owl, although I appreciate that anyone who is a teenager or is a parent of a teenager probably doesn't find that this is their experience at the moment, and teenagers are a special breed for sure, but I'm not going to get into that today. For the most part, humans are diurnal animals. That is, when the sun's up, we're up, the sun's down, we're down, and this is because of our circadian rhythm. Melatonin, then, is a hormone produced by the pineal gland in the brain, which helps drive your sleep cycle or your circadian rhythm. Melatonin helps drive the timing of sleep, but it doesn't put you to sleep per se. Even though we do take it as a sleeping aid or a medication you can take to aid sleep, which again, I will get to, it doesn't make you sleep. Let me try and explain. When you're exposed to sunlight, your melatonin production is really dampened because we don't want to sleep when the sun's up because we're diurnal, like I said before. When the sun goes down though, and we're exposed to more amber lighting, warm lighting, darkness, then our melatonin production starts to increase. Melatonin production and the receptors for the melatonin that is produced can be blocked by several things, including blue wave light in the UV spectrum. This is why your phones now may have a dark mode where you get an amber screen color, or you may find that blue light glasses are really in vogue. Unfortunately, the evidence isn't really there to support them, but again, this is what they're based on. So blocking blue light increases melatonin receptor activation, and therefore you should sleep better. And then adenosine is best thought of a byproduct of your metabolism, sort of the waste as it were, and the only way we can deal with it is when we sleep. So adenosine increases as the day goes on. Melatonin's low until you start to see the darkness, the warm glow, that sort of thing. That starts to increase, and when they get to a critical point, we should fall asleep when our sleep drive is higher than our arousal. Let's go back now to wired and tired. So when you're wired, when you're anxious, having all these thoughts, there's a whole host of both biological and psychological processes which occur, including things like the activation of your stress axis and things like that, which means that it's probably not the best for you to fall asleep. I like to try and simplify things, and they are oversimplifications, don't get me wrong. But talk about like when we were cavemen. If we were stressed about something, it usually meant there was a threat. So a tiger or something was after us, or a bear or a dinosaur, you name it, depends on what caveman you're talking about. So it would be a really bad thing for the survival of the species if we were able to fall asleep when we're stressed. We cannot be super stressed and fall asleep. Well, we can, but we shouldn't. So I understand sleep. I understand the processes behind it. I understand what it takes to fall asleep. So the first thing that I did when I noticed that I was really struggling with sleep initiation was I addressed my sleep hygiene. And no, this is not sleep hygiene as in you must have a bath before bed, that kind of hygiene. Though having a warm bath or shower before bed to relax you, increase your body temperature, which then would decrease, and as we cool down we get sleepy. That is part of sleep hygiene too, but not the part that I needed to focus on. Sleep hygiene talks about the steps you take in the hour or hours before your bedtime that lets your body know it's okay to unwind and it's time to go to sleep. So common things include not exercising a couple of hours before bed because exercise makes you more alert, not drinking caffeine several hours before bed because caffeine interacts with adenosine, making sure you're not drinking alcohol before bed. This wasn't a biggie for me because I don't drink very often at all. And whilst alcohol can make you feel sleepy, it puts you in a state of basically not being alert as opposed to sleep, which are very, very different. Other components of sleep hygiene may include no technology in the hour before bed, or at least nothing visual, and that comes back to the blue light more than anything, but also that we tend to be more alert when we're consuming media. And finally, having a bit of a ritual. Mind you, this is not a whole encompassing list of things. There are several other things, but it's just the basics. So the ritual may be things like doing yoga, meditating, having a tea that you have before bed, writing in a journal, a gratitude journal, or a general journal. Lots of different things to help you unwind, possibly thought dump, and get ready for bed. So reflecting on them, I exercise usually around 4 to 5 p.m. or 5 to 6 p.m. depends on when I get home from work. Is it a bit close to bed? Possibly. So I was trying to exercise a bit earlier. I didn't drink any caffeine after midday anyway, but I did cut down from 2 or 3 cups down to 1, which was a big transition. Like I said, didn't have to do much in the realm of alcohol reduction. Getting off my screen was difficult. I need to work on it. Sadly, despite all the things I did with my sleep hygiene, it wasn't enough. And I noticed that with every crappy night's sleep, my anxiety would climb higher and higher, and the next night would be worse and worse and worse. I'd wake up and I'd be agitated because I didn't get any sleep. And then I'd be tired all day, and then I'd get home and I'd be tired, and I think, yes, I'm gonna have a good night's sleep, and then I'd lie down, I'd be wired again, not tired, and I think, why can't I just sleep? It really, really was a huge negative. It really, really sucked. Initially, I just lay in bed and I'd think sleep will come soon, so I stayed in bed and realized it'd been hours. So I took my own advice and the advice I give patients all the time. If you weren't aware, doctors can be hypocrites. But I started getting out of bed after what I felt like 20 to 30 minutes. I didn't watch the clock per se, because that's also very bad, but if I felt like, no, it's been long enough, I'd get out of bed and I would do something. So I bought an adult activity book, so colouring in, but also some crosswords and Sudoku and other sort of not that mentally stimulating, but not so boring that I wouldn't want to do it activities that didn't involve my phone. Or I would have a drink, I'd just go sit on the couch and try and meditate or focus on my breathing, be grateful, as in practice gratitude. And I also started listening to Sleepcast or sleep meditation. The sleep meditation helped on some nights. For a week or so, I would try and listen to a sleep, preparation podcast or a sleep meditation track that would be like, okay, you're getting into bed now. But then I would find myself getting anxious as I put it on, being like, yep, I'm in for another crappy night and here's the beginning. So I had a really negative association with it, which may not happen for everyone, don't get me wrong. As for the sleep tracks, funny enough, the ones that I found worked very well for me were anything to do with trains, which is weird because I like trains, but I'm not like a train person. But for some reason, they really, really helped on some nights. Some nights I would fall asleep within, 20 minutes or so, because I can't remember what happened afterwards. Some nights I would be awake for the whole hour and a half, or the whole 2 hours, or 1 hour, or whatever it was that night. And once I was able to listen to something through, I couldn't put myself through it again. So there was a Harry Potter one, Getting on the Hogwarts Express. And I fell asleep to it a couple of times. And then one night I didn't fall asleep at all, and I listened to all of it. And I thought, I'll try again tomorrow. So I put it on the next night. And I just knew, I know what happens. I know how long it's going to take. And it wound me up more than it relaxed me. So I could never listen to that one again. Thankfully, there's a lot out there, a lot. So had a lot to choose from, but sleep tracks didn't always work for me either. One thing I haven't mentioned yet in something that I recommend for patients is reading, and reading like a paperback book as opposed to on your phone. My problem is I love reading, and I did try and read, but I would get really invested and not tired. And so I'd be up until 2:30, 3 o'clock reading. Then I tried to read books that I'd read before. So I reread, for some reason again, Harry Potter comes up a few times. And a few times that was really good. But again, sometimes I forgot about this. It's been ages since I read this book. And all of a sudden it wasn't relaxing or mind numbing or boring anymore. It was engaging. And I'd stay up again to 1, 2, 3, 4 a.m. reading. And trust me, I would say I'm reading to this chapter and then trying to fall asleep. Then I couldn't, so I'd get up, put on the lamp, read again. So it wasn't like I just read the whole thing in one sitting. It was really torturous. I do wonder if I was getting more sleep than I felt like I was, because this is a very common thing as well. I wear a smartwatch that's a Fitbit, and it does track my sleep. I just don't trust it very much, because I can watch a movie on the couch and not move, and it'll tell me I was asleep for an hour and a half, even though I was definitely awake, talking, or taking in the movie. Because it tracks more when your heart rate's down and when you breathe slower, which happens when you relax anyway. So it did say I was getting a lot of light sleep on the nights where I felt like I was awake for hours and hours. And I suppose I tried to tell myself, well, if all I'm getting is light rest, then that's better than no rest. And this helped a little bit too. I also did my very best not to catastrophize. I didn't have any days where I couldn't work because of how tired I was. I didn't have any days where I made mistakes at work because of how tired I was. So just telling myself, it's okay. If you get 4 hours sleep, that's fine. You will still be okay. You'll have your coffee tomorrow and you will carry on and you'll sleep better tomorrow because you're so tired. And sometimes that was true. And just knowing that helped a little bit. Like I said, being wired and tired was one of my main issues. And I've been asked by several people, including my GP, what is it you are up thinking about? And honestly, I don't know. Most nights, especially in the worst of it, I was thinking about sleep. Am I going to sleep? Is this going to be a bad night? What am I going to do tonight? What if I wake up my husband? If I put on the aircon, is that going to be bad? It was just about sleep. Sleep had become the enemy, and my bed had become my battleground. I tried very hard from the very beginning not to make it so, hence why I got it up out of bed and why I don't journal in bed, why I don't read in bed, why I don't do anything in bed. But it had. As soon as I put my head down on the pillow, I was ready to, I guess, be in agony for hours. And I would feel, and I still sometimes do feel, my heart rate elevate when I lie down, like, okay, is it gonna happen tonight or not? And I just feel palpitations and just like my flight or flight being activated. And it sucks. Bed is safe, bed is warm and cozy, but bed wasn't safe for me for a while. And bed should be the place where you rest and where you restore yourself. Bed should only be for sex and sleep. It shouldn't be for agonizing and being anxious, but that's what it became. And I'm only now, 7 months later, getting out of that habit. Throughout all of this, one piece of advice I took and I've kept doing is keeping things regular. So no matter how tired I was, no matter how busy I was, no matter what I expected to do, no matter how much sleep I got, I tried to go to bed between 10:30 and 6 and wake up around 6:30. I did change this a little bit, and I'll talk about that soon when it comes to restriction, as in bed restriction. But it is something that I tell patients and that my GP told me, and it's something I'm happy I was able to do. I also cut out naps, and I love naps. I am a notorious cat napper, and I always have been through uni. But it's something that I cut out, and I can't remember the last time I napped other than when I was ill. So there's that. I take other bits of advice too, like getting enough vitamin D and sunlight. Again, sunlight suppresses melatonin, helps with the cycle, etc. So I'd get out of the garden and water it and weed it and things like that for at least 10 minutes a day on pretty much most days, if not all days. I would stay active, so I exercised at least 2 hours a week. I would darken the house after 8, so all lights off except for lamps. I tried new pillows, bedding. I tried a lot. And I don't want to say that none of it worked, because obviously I'm in a better place now, hence why I'm making this video. I wonder if it's an accumulation of things, or I'm still getting to sort of the things that really helped me in the end, but it may be that these are the things that you need to do. So that's why I'm listing them. So don't take me being like, I did all of this and none of the thing worked until I did blah, because it may be enough for you. Every case is so different. And spoiler alert, mine's very much linked to my anxiety and other mental health things, so it might not be the case for you. On the topic of why I keep talking about like amber lights and lamps, the funniest way I heard it described, I think it was by a YouTuber actually, was that it's like caveman times. And again, I love going back to the analogies of caveman times because it makes so much sense to me as to why we are the way we are. But when the campfire was on, it was nighttime. We couldn't hunt, we couldn't gather, we would tell stories, unwind, and go to sleep. Same in like the Victorian era, the candlelight, the fireplace. So yeah, anyway, that's every time I put on my lamp, I'm like, oh, it's like the old times. So then I did try medication. So a couple of years ago, I tried melatonin or Circadian, which is a prescription melatonin, and for a while was the only melatonin available here in Australia. And it worked back then. So I figured, let's try it again. But I didn't want to get a script. I thought melatonin is a natural compound. You can buy it from places like iHerb and other herbal shops. And so I tried it, and it didn't really work for me at all. Then I tried sedating antihistamines, which you can get from the chemist and on script as well, but over the counter from the chemist for short bouts of insomnia. The one I used is doxylamine or Restivit. And unfortunately, I found out at 2 a.m. that I am one of the rare few people who actually has a paradoxical reaction to it, and that I got very agitated and very alert and very jittery, not sedated, not sleepy. When I then talked to my parents about it later, they said, yeah, we could never give you Phenergan as a kid because you became a monster. So apparently I've always been this way, but had no idea. So that also was not a fun lesson to learn at 2 a.m. especially. Small tip for you, if you're starting a new medication, try it before you need it potentially, with the aid of your healthcare professional. I then enrolled myself for sleep therapy. So personally, I use the This Way Up CBT Insomnia course. I do recommend it, absolutely, and I'm definitely not sponsored. And I also recommend, if you can, it would also be really nice to see someone face-to-face, like a psychologist about it too. But this course was accessible to me and I was able to do it in my own time. It was really nice to go over the basics and to have a structured approach to it, because I was trying things as if I was trying to be the doctor for myself, which is not a good thing. So it was nice to have that taken away and be given, right, this week you're doing this. And one thing they teach you in CBT-I, or CBT, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Insomnia, is about sleep efficiency and doing bedtime restriction. So sleep efficiency is the amount of time you spend in bed actually asleep, which was not very much for me initially. So you calculate, if you go to bed at 10 o'clock and you're up at 6 o'clock, but you only fall asleep at 2 a.m., you're really only sleeping from 2 till 6, so that's 4 hours. And you spend 4 hours in bed, so your sleep efficiency is only 50%. And we aim for 80, 90 plus percentage. So for me to then get to that, I would have to go to bed potentially at 1 a.m. So that's what bedtime restriction is restricting how long you're in bed, and going to bed later. And this goes against keeping the same routine, which is why I mentioned I'd talk about it later. And yeah, it was hard because I would want to go to bed, but I know if I go to bed, maybe I'll be wide and tired and I won't get to sleep. So I'd stay up later and I would only be in bed for 5 hours, hoping to get 4 hours sleep, maybe sometimes not getting even that. But as I had weeks where I was getting the 4 hours sleep there, I would then bring it back to midnight, and then 11, and now 10. So it took a very long time, and it was guided with health care professionals as well. And I think that's partially, or if not a big chunk, of the reason why I'm now considering myself as slightly reformed insomnia. I was also prescribed melatonin, so Circadian or Circadian, and I found for some reason the prescription strength brand, whatever you want to call it, is much better for me than the herbal one. Even though theoretically they're very similar, for me, I needed that prescription. So I took that in conjunction with the bedtime restriction and the sleep efficiency calculator. And after several months, I am now almost a reformed insomniac, like I said. I still struggle, I still have some really bad nights, but I am most certainly much better than I was. And I'm slowly realizing bed is very nice, and I'm not spending hours and hours tossing and turning, in chunks mind you, worrying about sleep. I'm now actually going bedtime, sleep time, bed, done, which is so good. So far I've made a list. I have cut down caffeine, cut out naps, kept a routine, gotten outside more, continued to journal, if not a bit more frequently, continued to exercise regularly, listened to sleep meditation, gotten out of bed when I couldn't sleep, trialed some medications, started using warm lights after 8, enrolled in therapy, restricted how much I was in bed, and I am slowly getting better. All it took was 7 months. As I said, I'm definitely not completely cured or free of insomnia. When I feel my heart elevate, I just tell myself it's okay. I'm still up in 20 minutes. I know I can do this, this, and this, being journal or read an old book or do something in my adult coloring book, and then I'll try again. I tell myself it's okay, sleep will come. I will get as much sleep as I need. I will be rested. I've never been detrimented by how much sleep I haven't had, other than the mental breakdowns I've had and the tears I've shed and the frustration. You know, it didn't impact my work or my relationships, so it's okay if I don't get perfect sleep tonight. It's okay. I will be okay. And I am okay. Everyone's journey is very different with insomnia. Sometimes doing the very simple things like I've listed help, like getting out more or exercising, cutting down caffeine. Some people like me needed therapy and medications. Some people need anti-anxiety medications, and for the record, I use them too. Some people need more intensive psychotherapy. Some people need sleep restriction and sleep diaries like I used, and all of it's very valid. If you're struggling, you don't have to do it alone. Chat to a GP, be referred to a psychologist, sign up for This Way Up, CBT-I like I did. Whatever it takes for you. Just know that your journey is valid and you deserve good sleep. You do not have to do it alone. As for other resources, I really enjoyed using the videos from the Psych Collective, and they've got some great handouts on their website as well. as well as apps like Headspace, and there was one Calm Sleep as well. And I'm using Balance as well as a meditation app at the moment. And shout out to all of my trained sleep story makers. Thank you so much. They've been very helpful. So there's a lot of free resources out there too, including this video. More of a long-winded explanation of my experience with a bit of science sprinkled in there too. But hey, I'm here to. Bottom line is there's hope, and there is nothing better than a good night's sleep. So that's my insomnia journey up until this point. I hope you learned something, and I hope that someone out there has resonated with this video and has been given a little bit of hope from it. Let me know what you want next from me, but guys, until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, sleep well, and I'll see you later.